Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds. I'm Nerdarch Steve, and as usual, I'm joined by this nerd.
Nerdocus Ted, how are you doing this fine and lovely evening, sir?
I'm doing good, man. Just chilling here, thinking thoughts and trying to damage people with them,
Thinking
and
thoughts.
and force. This is the only like. So this is the week of energy types where there's no like corresponding element or plane.
Sure.
Like even with necrotic and radiant, there used to be like a positive plane and a negative plane for those energy types. But for these, you've got nothing.
Yeah, to be fair, if you really wanted to have a psychic plane and an energy of force plane of existence, there's absolutely nothing to stop you from actually making that happen. But there's definitely a lot of fun when it comes to these particular energy types. There's either with the psychic, you get into things that are telepathic and have the ability to directly hurt your mind, which is kind of cool, or force, which has like things like magic missile on the low end and disintegration on the higher end.
So what's a plane of force look like to you? I mean, the psychic, I can kind of come up with some things, and I think that might be kind of cool. But force, I mean, I don't know what that is. Just like concussive explosions everywhere.
It could very well just, it could be like, moving things with your mind as opposed to like psychically, you're controlling everything magically and forcefully. So like, you could have things that are coupled together and held together, even though there's no adhesive, there's no glue to hold it there, but they are just magically there. There could be steps that are invisible or just barriers of energy. If I see things as kind of like wide open, for the most part, almost like a bit of a limbo. But then you have areas that the detritus has been all collected and again magically forced and held into place. I would imagine things like Mage Hand and Bigby's Hand and that kind of stuff are used to manipulate and do a lot of fun things. Even though, not every aspect of Bigby's Hand, is force damage, I think that that falls in close enough. And while Mage Hand isn't damaging, it is literally magically forcing things in. So, that's my low end correlation.
Doug says it's pure magical energy. Pure, unfettered. Magical energy. You got to cut that shit with something, or else it's just too much. Nick. Let's see. I think it was who said it. Nicholas mentions cranium rats, which is of course my favorite type of rat.
Of course.
Uh, oh no, it was Zargon that mentioned cranium rats.
Oh yeah.
Nicholas says he thinks of mind flayers when he thinks of psychic damage. Yeah, I mean like psychic damage is all the weird stuff in D&D. I feel like that's generally going to be your aberrations for the most part. Yeah, there might be some other things. I feel like very shortly we're going to get some dragons that have some psychic powers with the release of Fizzbands and the gemstone dragons, because
Yeah.
in the past they've always been related to psychic and psionics. So we'll see if that holds true or not.
Yeah, we'll see what that happens in the very near future.
Well, I
Uh,
think the Dragonborn that they released for the UA, I think the gemstone one had something to do with psychic.
okay, cool.
So there's that. And also, then they do like the feats, right? That
Yeah, the
uh
UA had the Gem Dragonborn as well as the Gem Dragon, feat, whatever it was. It was similar to the chromatic and the metallic dragon phase,
yeah.
if you will.
So we shall see when that comes out. But yeah, and also like I like to run the numbers when we do these.
Sure.
a lot of times. So force damage, there are only two creatures that have resistance to force damage.
The helmed horror and what else?
So there's the helmed horror, there's the lesser helmed horror, and then it's like a Salindar, which is this huge. It's a huge mechanical scorpion.
Oh, cool.
And then there's or maybe no, those are all immunities because there's only three with immunity. I'm not sure which two have the resistance. I'd have to look that up again. Because and then there's only 20 spells out of all the spells that do force damage. And when you get into psychic damage, you got 29 monsters that are resistant. And here's what kind of surprised me: there's 74 with immunity.
74 creatures that are immune to psychic damage.
There are.
Wow.
And then we have 17 spells, even less than force damage. So if you want to be a mage that focuses on either of those two areas, you're gonna have very limited choices. I mean, that being said, some of the best spells are associated with force damage. The arcane hand spells or Bigby's hand. Those are great spells. Steel Wind Strike, Magic Missile, and then one of my favorite spells for psychic damage is was it Static Shock?
Synaptic Shock,
which is basically a fireball, but for your mind. And also, life sucks if you fail that save.
There you go. Zargon says a helmed horror riding a gem dragon.
Yeah, cover all your bases, and also psychic damage. Man, like when I think of things that do psychic damage, I just think of a big middle finger to the totem barbarian, right? Like, it's the only thing they're not immune to.
Resistant.
Well, resistant, yeah, correct. That's what I meant.
But I mean, like to me, I think it's up to the GM not to do it for every encounter, but like you're supposed to challenge your players. So finding an encounter to just be like, all right, here's the thing that goes against your flaw, like that's something to overcome. That's something to kind of work at and to work towards. And like to me, it's part of the game. Like unless like the GM is like, all right, oh, you chose to be a totem barbarian. All right, it's going to be all psychic damage, all campaign. Well,
all the time, yeah.
Then it's like, yeah, you're flipping them off and saying, "Ha your class choice doesn't matter." But
that's how we're supposed to play the game, right?
No.
Oh.
I mean, that's how you kind of used to, but or at least some people did.
Back in the day, the good old days.
Yeah, call it the good old days.
Yeah.
Your character's death was important to the story.
It was integral that the Earth Element stomps on you. Stomps on your body once you go down. Hey, man, that's a Matt Colville thing, so it must be legit.
Long division with fractions, worst psychic damage ever.
Yeah. Or just new math. That's weird. That'll cause some psychic damage, I feel like.
So, you had said that, you've got, synaptic shock and, disintegrate and steel wind strike as some, up there spells. But do you feel with them having the lower end threshold, do you think that there's room? Do you think it would be worthwhile to kind of look through the levels and figure out where the holes are and try to find things or make things that fill those gaps?
So oddly enough, you actually when it comes to psychic damage, a few of them are actually cantrips, right? You have 2 cantrips to do psychic damage. It seems like a lot. And psychic damage runs the spread, even though you don't have very many. It looks like we only miss out on 2 spell or two levels.
Okay.
3rd and 7th. So you're definitely getting access to some different things. But like if you wanted to be like, I'm going to be a mage that focuses on psychic damage, I think force damage might be a little bit better, but even with both of them, like some of the spell levels are just like, oh well, you can take chromatic orb and that does whatever damage you choose. Um, so there is that. Uh, but I think even force has at least one cantrip. Oh no, two. I forgot about that one. How did I forget about Alger's Blast? Uh, but you sword burst is another one which I used to use that frequently.
Yes.
For a character that runs into melee, that's kind of a nice spell.
It is a great spell for casters that aren't afraid of melee combat.
And then for fourth, it looks like we've got all the levels covered. You get at least one spell for every level. It's actually got a slightly better spread than psychic damage. Although I also feel like psychic damage is a better theme than be like, I'm just going to do force damage. But
Well, if you've got that few amount of creatures that are resistant or immune, it's actually not a bad idea. I mean, I
yeah,
don't think there's anyone that's vulnerable to force like there are for some of the other things, but like the elemental stuff, there are a lot of creatures that wind up being resistant or immune to those particular types. So
I don't think that's not a search I can do. That makes me sad.
what monsters that are resistant?
Well, I'm in the wrong spot. Of course, I can't do that search here. Dumbass. Now I'm curious to like what monsters are vulnerable to what things. Like one of the searches that I know we can't do that I wish we did have was but damage type. Like because sometimes you're just like, you know what, I got a theme. I want to do this type of damage,
Yes.
and there's no way to figure that. Oh, flumps. Flumps have vulnerability to psychic damage.
Yeah, go figure.
That's so sad. I don't have that many hit points, so it's not good.
Yeah. Given how squishy flumps are, both in the figurative and the literal, it is amusing that they have the lore that they do. I just don't understand. But you had made a comment on one of the
Oh, and there's two monsters that have vulnerability to psychic damage.
flumps, and what else?
They're actually not psychic. I mean force. Flump is the only one for psychic damage. So they're both in Ghost of Saltmarsh. And Minotaur Living Crystal Statue, which I've definitely used one of those before, just because I thought it was cool. And then the Vampiric Jade Statue.
Okay.
Which I have no idea what that one is.
I'm not familiar with that one, but a crystalline creature that definitely makes sense for them to be vulnerable to force damage.
I feel like they're usually vulnerable to thunder damage, though. Like, is kind of like in the previous edition, it would have been sonic damage.
Yeah.
Back in the day, kids. So now, Nick had mentioned early on, like he thinks of mind flares when he thinks of psychic damage, but like I kind of go to like intellect devour because it's a low level monster that just like punches way above its belt.
Yeah, intellect devours are no joke. I've been kind of fiddling with both painting and sorting minis.
Oh yeah, you've been on it. You've been on an intellect devourer kick.
Well, I mean, I was looking at stuff and I realized that there were a whole bunch of brain critters that are out there, and I was trying to find out like, oh, beyond an intellect devourer and an elder brain and a grell, what else is there that is kind of brain related? And in so much that looking at the creature itself, you see a brain as part of it. And I've literally actually got the whole pile out out on the table, at the moment. But looking at my Reaper stuff, they have their own version of the Elder Brain that they call like the thing in the well, and then I've got a brain in a jar that's literally like it's got like a tripod walking device with a brain in a jar with a lid and what have you. And then they have their own version of the Grell, which is actually significantly bigger, and then their own version of the Intellect Hour, which again is also significantly bigger. So I'm like curious as to how, at some point in time, I'm going to use all of these for either a themed encounter or a themed like shorter adventure. But I'm like, having all of these brain things could be kind of cool. So I'm looking for more.
Can never have too much. Well, oddly enough, Grell have nothing to do with psychic damage.
I didn't think they did.
Lightning. It's for them. It's lightning.
But it's all things that are kind of themed. I mean,
I believe they zap you when they hit you with their tentacles.
But you could take them and kind of re-envision the creature, and if you didn't want them to have lightning, you could always switch it out to psychic and have them be some kind of bizarre monstrosity that's related to the Illithids if you didn't want them to
No, Ted, it would be an aberration.
What did I say?
Monstrosity.
Oh, well. All right.
I'm just messing with you, man. I know you're using it as an adjective.
As an adjective as opposed to a defined creature type.
Yes.
But yeah, so if you wanted them to be an aberration that, instead of doing lightning did psychic, that were created by the Illithids and alter the lore, that would be fun. And since they are already making, freaking animated brains, creatures of the Intellect Hours, it could kind of make sense. So if I ever decide to do an Illithid style game, that's the direction that, I think I would probably wind up going.
So apparently we've got at least one person in the chat that's watched some of our recorded games. So Zargon, question: did the Chaos Bleeds in your guys' Griffin Gaff game do psychic or force damage? I feel I should know this. There was no set damage. It was whenever a Chaos Bleed happened, the effect was generally going to be random. So it could be psychic or force, but if it was a damage effect, it could be any.
Yeah, I tended to kind of do the random roll like the Chaos Bolt. I think I had copied that chart and then worked with that.
And also shout out to Murphy McCrystal top. So
yeah, I very much love Murphy. That's something that at some point in time I should reach out to somebody and try and get your description of him, and either get someone to like 3D design it, because that would be a fantastic mini to
have. So here's the description. This is what you do. Just tell them like, hey, take the Nothic out of the monster manual, blow it up to about 20 feet tall, and then take a hit of acid and tell me what it looks like. That's what, and I think like that's what Murphy McCrystal top looks like.
And he had crystals growing out of him.
He did have crystal protrusions growing out of him.
That right will always be a
I know. That was like the best. It was like one of the best moments in one of our games. All right, for context, people, in one of our games, Ryan was playing a Chaos Mage, which I am very liberal with the Chaos Tides, and the Chaos Magic rolls. So, I make them happen as often as possible. And he rolled sheep at least once. And the Goblin Rangers in the party, when that happened, decided to mount him and force him back into battle when he was trying to run away. So we had contested checks. as to what the sheep was going to be allowed to do.
Yeah, so that's another mini to have two goblins with hand crossbows riding a sheep. That could be another good one.
Uh, what is Fraginators familiar in untraditional arcane?
He has not actually summoned it yet.
Oh,
So
it's a secret.
it does not matter whether what it had looked like. So it could possibly become a cranium rat if he summons it for the next session. We did have episode 6 this past Friday, which I thought was a lot of fun. Sadly, we were down a player, but we're getting ready to have the players leave and head off towards the Gravane graveyard. So next session will be all about necromancy and fun.
Yeah, I feel like a cranium rat could be a familiar. Why not?
Individually, I think they're not so bad.
Nah, I mean they do have some abilities, but whatever. They have 2 hit points. If your player gets too annoying with it, that's an easy fix.
Well, I feel that particular game, I'm not caring so much about the power creep. It is what it is. Spoiler alert! The last session, Robin's character has the spiritual section of a goblin wizard as her familiar. So crazy things happen.
Is that something that happened in game?
Yes.
So she has the spirit of a goblin wizard as her familiar.
Right. So what happened was the goblin. It was a goblin wizard, goblin shaman, call it what you will. It was trying to gather information, and it was threatening a village. So it would come in and it would, steal portions of people's soul to try and bully them and to make them give up what information was there. They refused to do it. Insert the players. Robin's character steps in and kind of takes over the conversation. And it's like, all right, fine, I'll leave. And they wind up taking a portion of, Robin's character Chess's soul. They go off, they find out where these goblins are, and the goblins and hobgoblins, they kill them all, and they find the vials that contain the portions of the soul. And without doing any kind of research, without investigating, Chess grabs the vial when she feels the connection to it, like, this is mine. And even though there's something odd about it, she drinks it anyway, or they drink it anyway. And that's when, Chess winds up having these bad dreams and realizes that the goblin had put a portion of his soul into each of the things so that he could kind of live on, even if something were to happen to him, should the other people rejoin with their souls without the things being purified. So Jess didn't do that. So this thing had attached itself to her.
Yeah, when you find random potions in a dungeon, you should definitely, at the bare minimum, run that thing through a Brita filter first before ingesting.
But that didn't happen. So
apparently not.
She talked to a master necromancer, and he's like, well, there's a couple different things that can be done. We don't have access to a powerful cleric here in the tower, or the council room. But how about we try this? You don't have a familiar. Why don't we alter the find familiar thing, since you technically summon a spirit, and this spirit is already connected to you through technically both of your own free will. Let's do this.
Free will, stupidity, however you want to look at it.
Well, the goblin made the choice of free will to put the portion of his soul into the container with Chess's. Chess, of her own free will, drank the potion taking in this spirit. So technically, they're both bound to each other. He's a spirit, she's not. So I turned it into a skill challenge and brought the whole party in on it. And they did a ritual and they modified a find familiar. So then during the actual casting, took a little bit longer, and the goblin like wound up shrinking down until it was like, you know, little over a foot tall. But it was a goblin wizard, and it might not stay in that form, but
What do you know what was going to happen if they failed the skill challenge?
the goblin might have gotten out. The goblin might have gotten away. There were a handful of things that could have happened depending upon what the success, you know, what, like the number of successes versus number of failures. I mean, the goblin could have very well just gotten away and could have been a pest later on. But since he was already defeated once, it would have been at best a nuisance, unless you know, altered things to go kind of crazy of like, well, wait till you meet my master, or you know, something along those lines.
I have an older brother. So Brian Smith wants to know ideas for traps that deal psychic damage.
So typically, like when I think of psychic damage, to me, my brain automatically goes to crystals. So I would have a thing that either has like a drop trap or like a pressure plate, and when the when the crystal breaks, it's like a concussion grenade, but as opposed to it forcing its way out and dealing like, you know, explosive damage, it's like a wave of brain hurty. That's my go-to. That's my, you know, that's my first thought upon, you know, hearing that suggestion.
Nick says a jeweler mind flare skull that has you, that if you touch it, fires a cone of psychic damage at you.
You know, like
I think of like mental, like puzzles that, like, you know, if you make the wrong choices, they zap you with psychic damage, something along those lines.
Yeah.
Or also, but also you can look at spells, right? Mind Sliver and crap. What's the bard one? The bard, Vicious Mockery, right? Are two cantrips that are spells that kind of give you an idea. The idea that a trap that you have to engage with mentally or emotionally, and if you fail to overcome it, it hurts your feelings so bad you take psychic damages.
So like to me, like I love Vicious Mockery. But like, so what if you had literally a statuette at the, you know, the one end of a corridor, and all it does, you know, when it detects the presence of someone in the corridor that doesn't, you know, say the right passphrase, that it just starts insulting you, but it's actually using, you know, the straight up cantrip, it literally mocks you painfully.
Yeah, I do kind of like that, or any kind of trap that kind of pulls you into your own mind. And possibly like the trap part is maybe making you relive certain memories, but maybe they're inaccurate or they're not quite right, and you know, you actually have to navigate through those memories again to navigate the trap, right? And if you fail to do so, like you may stay kind of like paralyzed and taking psychic damage,
which, you know, could be representative by, you know, successful intelligence saving throws.
Yeah. But at the same time, also, like, I would use the scene as a way for them to interact and investigate the trap in order to possibly find ways to bypass it, or kind of disarm it.
Sure.
You know, otherwise you're just kind of being a jerk.
Otherwise you're just being a jerk.
If it's just something there to do damage.
Well, I mean,
Oh my God, Zaragon, cursed magic, cursed item. Jack in the Box casts vicious mockery randomly while laughing like a clown. I missed the cursed item part, and I just thought of a room full of Jack in the Boxes that randomly go off and have the Jack in the Box go back in after they pop out. That do that almost like a hazard.
And there's nothing that would stop that from happening if it's thematic to whoever owns that place or whoever had created that place. It's completely doable.
How is that not a monster? How do we not have a Jack in the Box monster?
I don't know, but
It
while you're
feels like
looking,
there should be a Jack in the Box monster.
but you know what's not psychic damage, and you know what I'm not gonna force you to do, even though I recommend you do. If you haven't signed up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter, highly recommended, because that's one of the ways that you get access to our monthly giveaway. And since today is the second Monday of the month that I happen to be on, I'm going to show off what we're giving away in September. Here is the box. I can lift this one up, even though I can say how much stuff is in here is still a pretty decent amount. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, at least 12 sets of WizKids minis. I'm not going to hold them all up. I've got a copy of Out of the Box Adventures, as well as the map and mini pack that go with it, and from our friends over at Easy Roller Dice, one of their cool dice cups. All told, it's I think this one's well over $200 worth of stuff. It's a lot of fun things in here if you're into minis or you want to get access to Out of the Box because you didn't happen to back it when we put it up on Kickstarter. But the newsletter, it's free. You get access to some very cool information that we send out weekly, as well as the a free entry into our giveaway, and some free digital products if you sign up, because we give you a promo code that's good for stuff off of our site to show you the cool stuff that we're making, which we do every month. So go check it out. Go sign up if you haven't already. A lot of fun things.
Absolutely. And also, we give cool, we have cool content that goes up over on the newsletter, so you're gonna want to check that out. We've been known to make things that you could just drop right in your game,
and we link what we talk about here to that stuff, so it's expanded upon what's here, or you can kind of get the ideas that are discussed here in full on written form, whether it be magic items, subclasses, monsters, traps. For the we had done acid a couple weeks back, and I was kind of torn on that one, but I was pretty happy with what I came up with. I made a cool hazard.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things where I feel like we don't have nearly as many options in 5e than some of the other stuff. So hazards are nice, and I feel like for psychic, you can probably come up with some really cool ones that are kind of tied to psychic phenomena, right? And I feel like any kind of encroachment from the the far realm or something might definitely do something like that. So, but yeah, so sign up for the newsletter, win stuff. But I'm sure everyone here is mostly regulars and hangs out with us a lot. So they're probably most of these folks.
There are definite names that I see here in the chat that happen to I've recognized come in the list when I've done either the giveaway or the gaming with Nerdarchy. So, but I'm really talking to the people who might be coming in after, not to those that are watching live, because I'm certain everybody that's watching right now has already gone ahead and signed up. So,
Nick is a funny guy, Nick. It's almost like you did a whole Kickstarter about things you could drop right into your game.
that's not what Nerd is all about, is it?
It might be time for us to do a second Kickstarter of things you can just drop right in your game. It's on the
Yeah,
list of things to do.
that is definitely on the list of things to do. If I can get real to the fans out there, we've got like at least 4 or 5 things that are kind of in development to some level of degree at this moment. So there are Kickstarters that are in process. Don't you worry. The only reason that we hadn't moved is because there were delays with shipping on
Out of the box, yeah.
out of the box. So
You better bet best believe we are working on ways to part you from your hard earned money.
no, we're working on ways for you to support the channel that you love and to get the cool products that that we've got the ability to make.
That too. Second Kickstarter. Yeah, we've got so the next Kickstarter, we can actually say what it is. I don't think that's a big deal. We're gonna do magic item cards because we've made a lot of magic items. So we want to do decks of magic item cards.
And if you happen to be a patron, you've been seeing over the last handful of months that we've been doing the print and play cards. I've been kind of art directing for a little while on that with the stuff that we've already created that we don't have the artwork for. I got to tell you, that has definitely been a lot of fun.
And then if you follow us on Twitter, we've definitely dropped a couple of
just
images. I don't know if Doug's dropped them over on Facebook or not, or anywhere else, but we definitely teased a couple images from a project that's upcoming, and we're looking to release early next year. And it's actually not going to be a D&D project. It'll be RPG related, but not D&D. I know.
Crazy. Oh my God, Dave! I will say. In one of our released products, we had the frog tongue shield, and when we got the final version of that back from the artist, I of course showed it to my frog obsessed daughter, and she's like, "Well, I need to have a copy of that." so I had sent it to her, and she's got that as the kind of background screen, or at least did for a little while on her device.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, it's funny, like the amount of frog related items we've made. I blame you mostly, but it's not all your fault.
No, I would say it's less than half of the things that I've made.
So we did. Well, no, never mind. It's all your fault. Let's see. First of all, there's a bunch of stuff from Muckwuggle, right? And like, while we didn't make that stuff, we did do the video on Muckwuggle, which was your idea. And we talked about that, and then had that turned into a patron reward, and then a product over on the store. So inadvertently, even indirectly, I want to say like all the frog items are your fault.
All right, sure, fine. I'll take the blame for the sheer awesomeness of frog related stuff that we have. Fine.
There you go. Blame, credit, whatever, as the case may be.
Brian laughing at my word faux pas. We had done acid a couple weeks back.
It's true. It's true.
We had discussed the topic of acid in D&D a couple weeks back. Is that
it was way longer than a couple. Never mind. That's something completely different.
Oh my God.
Don't do drugs, kids. Don't do drugs. Just say no. This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. I feel like that commercial was psychic damage. Are people even old enough to remember that commercial?
I know some of our fans are. I don't know how old all of these people here in the chat are. So
Yeah.
so
Like,
Doug, you can thank me because the frog stuff is your favorite. That's fine. Don't blame Dave. It's apparently all
it's
my
all
fault.
Ted. I mean, you could totally do Frog Batman with the amount of stuff in there. Which is, I mean, the Frog Shield is one of my favorites as well because, like, I don't know if it's written into it, but you can use. I know you can use it to pull things towards you. Can you also use it to pull yourself towards things?
I don't think so. I think that might be a GM interpretation thing, which I think any cool GM worth their
Oh
salt.
yeah, you could totally do the Batman thing with the Frog Shield.
I am Frogman.
Yeah.
You could reflavor your boots of springing and striding. Have them made of frog skin, and have them so you can jump far, but you have to kind of like crouch down first. Um, yeah, you could take some things that are already there and just tweak them a little bit, and now they're froggy.
But I do feel like we need to like put an embargo on frog items for a while because we have a lot of them.
Yeah, either that or we need to double down and do an entire deck that's just frogs.
Yeah, which we're a little ways away from doing that, I believe.
Yeah, I would say.
I was going to be like, well, I guess we could do a whole month of rewards on Friday. I'm like, oh, never mind. We already did that.
We did that.
Yeah. Although, it might be fun to revisit Muckwuggle, and because I would definitely like to delve more into the myth and lore behind the Toad Father.
Sure.
Which, I mean, I feel like those products might cause some psychic damage to people, but it's all about the frog puns.
Again, I revisit the fact that I'm kind of sorting out my minis that are painted and to be painted, and I have a box that is literally all frog stuff. And when I look at the fact that there are demon toads and there are slod and a handful of other things, as well, an entire Kickstarter of frog related humanoids, like kind of a pseudo chibi style. There's a lot of stuff that's there that could be worked on and what have you, but one of my slot is actually missing a hand, so I'm like, what am I trading this out with? What am I putting on there?
Oh, you're gonna attach a weapon to it?
I don't know what I'm doing yet. When Ted said Frogman, my mind immediately pictured Henry Cavill in the Super Mario Brothers 3 frog suit.
That is very specific. Did that happen?
I don't know, but if that exists, that's pretty darn hysterical.
And if it doesn't exist,
somebody,
you've got some really weird kinks. I mean, that's we don't kink shame here, but that's an odd one.
Perhaps Zargon just imagines, Henry Cavill, like, I believe that would do with Superman. That's the iconic, figurehead of a superhero, and so therefore he just put the Frogman costume on top, and voila, you got Frogman. I don't know.
I guess, but DC superhero movies are kind of shitty in comparison to Marvel.
I don't know. Have you seen the new Suicide Squad?
I did. Like, they've done a bunch of them, and they've got like 2 really good movies out of them. Wonder Woman was really good, and the second Suicide Squad was really good. I mean, I even like the bad ones, but
I didn't have any problems with Aquaman.
With Aquaman, yeah, Aquaman was decent.
I mean, I know that there are like every single person that's a Green Lantern, like that read the comics of Green Lantern, absolutely despised that movie, but I loved Green Lantern with Ryan Reynolds. I
wouldn't say I loved it, but I enjoyed it.
I loved it. I'll watch it over.
I mean, it did have Ryan Reynolds in it, so that's always a plus. He's like a national treasure for Canada.
So
I feel like people should steal Ryan Reynolds like schools do with mascots.
so I guess complimenting DC superhero movies could fall into the doing psychic damage realm.
For some people, yes, I'm sure.
We got 15 minutes left. We've definitely done a lot of talk in regards to psychic, but not a whole lot of talk about force. When I think of force damage, again, I reiterate, magic missile comes to mind, eldritch blast comes to mind, and for me, the go-to spell is disintegrate, which makes me think of beholders.
Mm.
Does disintegrate give you anything, or does force damage, like in the powerful end of things, give you any kind of thought patterns?
Well, I mean, one of my favorite monsters is immune to force damage, but other than that, not really. I mean, I love the helm. I've loved I love the helm horror, and I believe that's a 5e monster, right? I don't think that existed before. And I just really think it's a great monster in the sense that it's a construct that gives off undead vibes.
Mm-hmm.
And visually it's just really cool. And then in addition to that, it's got some interesting things going on with it where they're just like super tough. Like they don't do a ton of damage,
Mm-hmm.
but they're just resistant or immune to stuff. And they can fly, so they have mobility on the battlefield.
Right.
So tactically, I think they're interesting from those standpoints.
And I mean, there is so many ways to approach combat, from a defensive point, from a tactical point, and Helmed Horrors covers all the bases. So I mean, I can definitely see favoring things as a kind of go-to in things that can fill any niche that you need. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And and also like they're a construct that are intelligence, and like it's also kind of fun where you can like mix them in with things like animated suits of armor,
Mm-hmm.
and it might not be apparent right away, the difference.
Right. Imagine having the like 3 or 4 suits of armor, and 2 of them are nothing more than animated armor, and 2 of them are helmed horrors, but visually they're all pretty much the same. And the first 2 go, and just the players are fighting and fighting and fighting, and just like, oh my god, these things are not dying. There's 4 of
nothing
them?
more. But then you nearly murder one of the fans with a suit of animated armor.
All right, I ran a one shot, back in the time frame of when we were playing, or when we were running our monthly fan games on the channel. I used an animated armor, and the party was 5th level, and an animated armor is only like challenge 1. So like I put in a single 1 as the kind of opening encounter, the opening fight, thinking, okay, this is not going to be that big a deal. What have you? The party wakes up to being fought. Oh no. Well, because it was the first encounter of the night, nobody wanted to use anything higher than a cantrip, and everybody was rolling poorly. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna kill these guys. Like we're gonna die. Like they're gonna die right here. It was really difficult. And when planning, I'm thinking they're 5th level, I can probably use 2 of these things. I think I would have killed them had I used 2, because an armor class 20 was just too difficult to hit, and they weren't doing any spells that required saving throws. Was all attack rolls. So it was just miss, 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 miss. Meanwhile, they have a pretty decent hit, and the one dude, was a late sleeper, so he didn't have his armor on. The other guy was a spellcaster, and they were all close enough. So like this thing is just battering away, and they get more than 1 attack. So it was pretty harsh.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? Sometimes you just gotta TPK the party with a suit of animated armor.
I like Zargon's question. You could have a weapon that did force damage or psychic damage. Which would you pick, and what would it look like?
Well, doesn't Shadow Blade do psychic damage?
I do not know off the top of my head.
And then I was gonna say brilliant energy weapons from third edition, but they didn't do force damage. They actually didn't harm things that were like they were like spectral almost. Like they ignored things like armor.
Yes, they ignored armor back when that was a
Yeah,
that was
it
a
went
thing.
off your touch AC when that was a thing.
Yep, that touch armor class that was painful.
Yeah.
Oh, you've got your flat-footed AC and your touch AC and your regular AC.
What does the wild magic barbarian? One of their things is does it turn into psychic damage or force damage?
I think it's worse.
If only there was an app that is right in front of me that I could just look it up in an instant. Also, I saw who mentioned it. Was it Zargon? Yeah, Zargon. DC movies could be good. They just need to be bought by Marvel. No, they don't. The DC has a awesome animated department. Like their animated stuff is fantastic. All they have to do is fire anyone that does anything with movies and just turn it over to the animated people, and it'll be amazing. So yeah, that is the fix as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree there. Their animated TV shows are better than anything Marvel has ever put out. I mean, I've watched a handful of those things, especially the Justice League multiple times.
Yeah, Unlimited series was fantastic.
And would watch it again, because I enjoyed it that much. So yeah, you could just take that team and be like, look, the MCU has already proved that you can do a 20 plus movie series and do it successfully. Yeah.
Well, you know what it is? It's because like almost every one of the DC movies, except for the ones that did come out and were pretty decent, like each one of them felt the need to put their artistic spin on it, right? Instead, they did a combination of that and go, oh, here's 5 storylines. Let me cram it into one movie. Instead of just like letting it slow burn and being like, you know what? All we have to do is take this comic book right here. It's already storyboarded. Follow this. It's already proven people like it. But they've refused to do that because these a-holes want to prove what kind of artists they are or whatever. And I'm like, ugh. And then they make something that makes you want to vomit.
Yeah.
In comparison, like I said, like I still enjoy a lot of those movies, but I have to like contextualize it and go, and remove them from whatever I actually know about like the comics to enjoy them. And then once you do that, it's much easier.
Yeah, I pretty much, look at that as well. It's very sad when I look at how successful things are. I mean, yeah, DC does not always have the best with some of their second, third, fourth tier characters with names. But you move on past that and what have you. But barring that, the stories are fantastic. DC would not still be around, would not still be putting out stories if they did not have great characters and great character development and great authors supporting such. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and also like, and it's already been proven like you can do a good DC movie. You just need good people behind it, and maybe not Zack Snyder. So, like you said, the last Suicide Squad might be the best DC movie. I know my son was cracking up the whole time and just like, it just had like the right amounts of comedy in there in addition to like the action and seriousness. And it was kind of like funny to contrast it to like Guardians of the Galaxy,
Mm.
because it was a very different type of comedy, but like still, James Gunn did a really good job of like working it in there and tailoring it to those characters and those themes.
I enjoyed it, but I was definitely very confused in the beginning, and I don't know if that was the intent, if maybe I just was off on the wrong foot. Uh, I don't want to say anymore because I don't want to give it away because it's a
Yeah, yeah.
fairly new release. I enjoyed it. My wife less so, but whatever.
Well, not everybody can like everything.
Indeed.
Did you let your kids watch that? They seem young.
No, I no. We it was just that was just the two of us.
Would you let Teddy watch it?
I think the newest Suicide Squad I think is a little less brutal than the first one. They definitely I think they undersexed Harley Quinn with this one than they did with the first one. So other than the bit of things implied, there's not really an issue that I would think my teenager would have a problem with, or I would have a problem with showing my teenager. So
I think you mean didn't over sexualize, not under sexualized.
well, okay, however you wish to describe it.
Yeah, yeah. They
So,
reined it back from the first one.
yeah, they definitely pulled back. I mean, they didn't have the oh, let's look at the skin tight shirt and the itty bitty skimpy shorts and what have you. So like they didn't shove it down your throat. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. We can see her as a person as opposed to a hey, look, TNA.
Yeah, yeah. It was a little more in depth for
We are
sure.
down to our last few minutes. If you have any particular questions, whether it's related to Psychic and Force or not, go ahead and throw those in the chat, and we'll kind of get to them. Uh, the drill. It's doing our thing.
Did you already write your newsletter?
I have not done Psychic and Force. I really thought that I was going to get to it today, and other things kind of got in my way, and I'm like, yeah.
Well, I know you oftentimes out of us, you're more likely to write them ahead.
I I
And
do like I do like to be ahead, so that number
yeah,
one, got ideas to talk about and thought patterns. Uh, and even though this whole damage type series was kind of put on the table by myself as a hey, here's a whole laundry list of things that we can talk about. By the time we got into this tail end, I'm like,
these are a little tougher. Yeah,
these are a little bit tougher. I mean, after the chat today, I'm very much thinking about putting forth the pair of hazards. Actually coming up with the crushed crystals in a geez, God, I can't talk. In the the platform, as well as the statuette at the end of the corridor that needs a particular passphrase. So I think that could be a lot of fun. And who knows, maybe we have a collection of hazards.
I might do a Jack in the Box. I don't know if it would be a trap or a monster though,
Sure.
or both. Dun, dun, dun.
But who knows, having a selection of pre-made hazards might be a wind up good idea for us to have at some point in time down the road.
That we someday turn into a deck of hazards.
Indeed. That's what
I know. I mean, tangentially related. I had done when we did. I don't know if we did war or mass battles or something, but I had actually did like battlefield hazards and
Ooh.
just like kind of like using things that might happen, like just like the shift of a squadron or something or a legion on the battlefield could create like a a hazard instead of like turning it into like a fighting situation, because it's not like it wasn't like meant to be a direct conflict, or even like, or just random things that could happen because you're on a battlefield. Oh, look, where you are is now being targeted by, the archers. And, at that point, like, it's not just make an attack roll, because like it's literally like a wall of arrows coming
Right.
down where you're standing.
So, throw out to the chat, Nick. It was great that you could join us, even if it meant that you weren't able to be getting to sleep on time. We
Yeah.
always appreciate when you can catch us live. And Zargon says that you should make a Jack in the Box mimic, surrounded by bear trap mimics, which I've used. So those are fantastic.
Yeah. That was a dick move. The bear trap mimic. I mean, listen, like we've got a fighter character in the party that kind of does unorthodox things from time to time.
Sure.
And you absolutely knew he was going to. You put giant traps in. You're like, he's totally going to try and pick that up and hit somebody with it, and he did, and it was a mimic.
I absolutely did. I did not do it so that he would pick it up. I put things out on the battlefield that like, oh, well, here's some scenery and some things. Yeah. And
I still think he beat somebody with it, but it just didn't have the effect he wanted.
I have grown very fond of the concept of putting things out on the battlefield as terrain that may or may not be terrain before the battle is over.
Oh my God, Zargon, Jack in the Box with a tethered gazer inside, like a little freaking Jack in the Box with a balloon. But the balloon's a gazer.
Yeah, that could be.
I've definitely used a swarm of gazers before.
A swarm of gazers.
Yeah, I mean they're really weak monsters, but a lot of them are pretty annoying.
We had a very similar interaction with a spectator a la vis-a-vis gazer transformation in the mini terrain domain this past week. So we have
a swarm of gazers.
So
what wound up of spectators?
There was a spectator who was the first mate of the ship that we were using for a long time. It was actually in season 3. Well, going into the end,
Stanley would have loved to meet that guy.
Going into the end of season 4, the ship disappeared, and season 5 we appear in Icewind Dale on half of the ship when we teleport to it. Well, we find out through magical communication that this spectator has been trapped by Aviatrix and possibly by Ariel. Well, the method of communication that we wound up deciding to use was the dream spell. So the Goliath Warlock used Dream to have our Elven Bard communicate with the spectator. So I don't know who the parents are, but as we all know, beholders make new beholders
by dreaming.
Dreams. So,
well, clearly the Bard and the Warlock are the parents.
So the second time that
would be so good if it imprinted on them.
The second time the dream spell was cast, there were a handful of gazers floating around. And then they still used the dream another time. So we finally freed the spectator this past week. And as he came out, instead of having, the 4 eye stalks with, 4 eyes on it, he comes out and he's holding 4 gazers. So it still looks like he's got 4 eyes or 4 eye stalks, but each of those eye stalks has got little eyes sticking up off.
So each one of them's a gazer. That's gross.
So he's able to let go, and he's actually got hands.
Oh.
but he now
Almost
has
like a withholder.
almost like a withholder, but he's got 10 gazers that float around him. So when he wants to use an eye ray, he grabs one of the gazers
And
and
squeezes it.
he basically, has it go off.
Oh, that's so good. That's ingenious.
It was absolutely fantastic.
Jake wins D&D.
And it gets better than that, but I won't give any
Oh
more.
my god, he's got to get the art for that made.
That would be fantastic.
I mean, the 4 hands with the 10 floating. Yeah, that's like a mecha. That's like a mecha beholder. But we are like 5 minutes past, so it's that time. We'll be back tomorrow night if you want to see the season finale for the Quest RPG and see what antics we get up to over there. I think we have to stop a sun from being exploded or eaten or something. I don't know. I'm sure it'll be fine. So, and of course, we'll be back on tomorrow for the live chat, and then Thursday and Friday as well. So come on back and hang out with us. And until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.